He's literally the most terrifying and OP being in the entire universe. He's an unbeatable demon king who's been absolutely crushing and humiliating every single hero for over 2,000 years, but being at the absolute top gets pretty lonely. Honestly, he just got bored out of his mind, so he decides to pull off the absolute unthinkable. He straight up takes on a secret human identity. Also, he can personally train the absolute worst, trash-tier generation of rookie heroes ever. These kids are totally slept on. They get mocked and treated like absolute garbage by everyone around them, and without them even knowing, their own master is actually sending his top demon generals to hunt them down. He's literally forcing these kids to break past their limits and awaken some seriously monstrous powers. They end up completely destroying these relentless enemies with raw strength that straight up defies logic. But this whole thing is just one insane big brain setup he's running from the shadows. He's literally building the perfect heroes, and it's all just so he can get the thrill of fighting them in a totally epic deathmatch later on. The biggest villain in history just casually became the ultimate overpowered mentor. It all kicks off over in the peaceful Dominion continent. But this place is constantly living in fear of the Demon King. A bunch of heroes always show up trying to take down this monster no matter what. In the end, justice always wins, and peace rules once again. But the guy right in the middle of our story right now introduces himself simply as Justius the hero. Staring down the villain, he screams that he's gonna wipe out this ancient evil. Mocking him, the Demon King asks what number this new invader is. Justius warns him that all this arrogance is gonna be his downfall. Then he readies the sword of judgment to wipe out the darkness. Watching this all go down, the horned boss says he's actually impressed by his guts. Right then, our young MC charges in with everything he's got. Yelling out his battle cry, he rushes straight into the attack without a second thought. The creature still thinks human determination is honestly pretty amazing, so he decides to have a little chat about how mortals tick. Grabbing the kid right by the neck, he tells him they never change. Then it finally hits him that Justius is challenger number 326. Crad explains that he's been waiting for a real rival for 2,000 years, revealing he easily dodged the hit. He slams the hero into the dirt. Now he gives him a choice. He can run away and live out his days like a total coward, or he can face his duty and risk it all in one final showdown. So the Demon King tells the kid to hurry up and choose his fate. New warriors just kept coming, from mutants all the way to tech-enhanced soldiers. Over time, some seriously wild types of fighters showed up, but honestly nothing else really changed around there. Because to this day, nobody has ever managed to beat Demon King Crad. Looking annoyed, Dominic complains that his master should have left on time. He's ranting because he caught him reading comic books instead of getting ready. Crad tries to explain the comic book reference, but his servant totally brushes him off. Just take a second to realize the main villain's biggest priority right now is human pop culture. Dominic yells at him to get dressed, but Crad just tells him to go be the king himself. Once again, the ruler accepts a challenge, but he's looking kinda confused. Staring at a defeated Jeriel, he points out the guy doesn't even have the strength for his final words. Crying on the ground, the guy straight up confesses he never even wanted to be a hero, revealing his dream was actually to be a director. He startles Crad by screaming out of nowhere. Bawling his eyes out, the warrior shares his biggest dying wish. He just wanted to watch the movie called Look at Me through the crack in the door. Sobbing, he swears he never would have become a hero if he knew he'd die before the premiere. Baffled by that insanely long title, Crad realizes the kid has already kicked the bucket. Staring at his castle, he realizes he doesn't even remember the fight itself. He thinks about how so many died in one single hit, but something just stuck in his head. It was that exact weird title about looking through a crack. Admitting he's curious, he just can't shake how intense those final words were. Then he wonders if he's just so bored that he's actually getting into this nonsense. Calling in Dominic, he asks for a little favor to pass the time. The subordinate comes right back and Crad asks about that whole crack in the door thing. Confirming his research, the servant warns him the answer is honestly a bit of a letdown. Getting the rundown, Crad realizes just how fast human tech has leveled up. Dominic breaks down how movies are basically projects put together by a bunch of modern artists. Clearing up the mystery, Crad finds out the movie actually drops tomorrow. His assistant confirms it and adds that dramas and cartoons have totally blown up too. Crad sighs. He thinks it's a huge waste that humans aren't just focusing purely on training. The Demon Lord wraps up the chat, thanking him for the info dump, and after a brief moment of silence, Crad decides to go see the movie in person, sending his servant into an absolute panic. But the king is already heading out and tells Dominic to watch the castle by himself. Stressing out, the subordinate wonders if there's still time to stop his master. Today, he deeply regrets not holding the boss back. A while later, Dominic gets caught totally off guard by a weird request. Crad announced he was heading to the human world just to check out some director's work. Flexing a smartphone, he started rambling about how wireless earbuds are straight up magical. Right then, the Demon King demanded his assistant's full attention. He complained about a trash-tier live-action adaptation and basically turned into the biggest otaku in history. Dominic gets that boredom caused all this, but he still thinks this human hobby is weird as hell. Now he's dead set on making sure today's schedule doesn't get delayed for anything. Telling him they gotta hurry, the servant just gets cut off by Crad. He acts all high and mighty as the absolute being who could literally nuke the entire world. But his assistant literally couldn't care less and just asks what his point is. After dropping a super dramatic pause, Crad just flat out says he doesn't feel like leaving the house at all, and he tries to quietly sneak away so he can ditch work. Meanwhile, the newbie Roko just finished cleaning up the place. Dominic calls the girl over, getting the tiny subordinate all hyped up. He lets her know he's heading out with the boss and tells her to hold down the fort. While Roko agrees, Crad keeps whining and begging for an excuse to stay home. The girl just wishes them luck, thinking their lives must be super tough. Soon enough, the two of them arrive in disguise at the Great Meridium Arena. Crad asks why they even need to watch a bunch of hero candidates training. His assistant just hands over the daily fight schedule for him to read. The king complains about the lack of warning, but his servant knows he would have bailed if he told him. Crad grumbles that all these rookie heroes are always the exact same trash. He suggests they just watch the opening and then dip so they can hit the movie theater. Dominic asks how many seconds it would take for the king to level that entire arena. He says he knows exactly how OP he is and about his 1,000-year search for a real rival. Because of that, he guarantees this training event is going to be completely different. He promises his master is going to find something that actually catches his eye. Crad stays quiet for a few seconds, just thinking it over. And finally, he agrees to focus on the match that's about to start. The subordinate smiles and apologizes for snapping at him earlier. He lets him know the movie tickets are already booked for right after the fights. He explains that there are two really important people they need to keep an eye on today. Crad is honestly shocked to hear there are actually two promising candidates in the building, but he decides to trust his loyal subordinate's judgment on this one. The event kicks off, and the first key player steps right up on the right side. The young swordswoman's eyes are practically sparkling with hype. Someone in the crowd screams for her to go all out and use everything she's got. The girl looks super determined while the crowd goes absolutely nuts. Her opponent, Gonilde, mocks her for being just some kid from Eastwood. He warns her he's not going to hold back in front of this many witnesses. The giant laughs out loud while staring down little Riley. Crad notices that these massive meatheads usually get wrecked in fiction. Before they start, a mage lets them know he's going to throw up a protection barrier. Gonilde even complains about the mage's outfit while waiting for the green light. Riley just watches everything in silence, already knowing this is going to be over way too fast. Up in the stands, the duo talks about how these barriers totally made wooden swords obsolete. Right then, the Demon King actually gets pretty hyped watching the action down in the arena. Riley draws her blade with some absolute god-tier precision. The second the match starts, the mystic shield pops up right between them. Gunil screams in pain as the magic completely wraps around his body. The girl was already planning to wrap this up exactly like she expected. Dominic also realizes this fight is pretty much over. The giant screams that she's dead meat, but the match is literally about to end. He raises his axe for a super heavy overhead swing, but his eyes just shoot wide open in pure terror. The warrior completely freezes right in the middle of his attack. Riley calmly gets into position to deliver the finishing blow. He gets this horrifying vision of his own body getting sliced to pieces. Panic totally takes over and the guy just screams in absolute despair. Sweating bullets and gasping for air, the brute instantly surrenders. The ref calls the match and declares Riley the clear winner. Totally confused, the crowd starts wondering if the fight was rigged. Seriously impressed, Crad asks who the surprising kid even is. His assistant explains her name is Riley, and she's got some pure raw talent. Dominic notices the girl managed to hook his master's interest real quick. He points out that she aimed right where the barrier dropped to force him to quit. He explains the technique uses genuine killing intent to fake a real slice. Crad admits that even though he's seen plenty of geniuses, she shows a ton of promise. Feeling curious, he asks about that other weird candidate Dominic mentioned earlier. A new fighter steps onto the battlefield with a massive grin on his face. While Troy hyped himself up, Gregory is over there complaining about Gunilde losing. Gregory decides he's gonna flex his dominance without making any stupid mistakes. The ref gives the go-ahead, but Crowd is just looking at the setup all confused. The opponent finds Troy's stance weird since he seems to just be charging a basic aura. He doubts the kid honestly expects to land an attack that obvious. Getting pissed at what feels like disrespect, he decides to bust out his secret move. Then he calms down, figuring dodging that attack is gonna be a total breeze. Crad explains that this aura firing technique is straight up beginner stuff. Gregory mocks him, thinking the noob is just throwing his energy away. Suddenly, the Demon King is absolutely mind-blown by what he sees in the arena. Troy unleashes a massive aura that charges right at him like an absolute tank. Gregory takes the hit head-on and has no clue how that strike even got him. The kid claims he never underestimated or disrespected his opponent for a second. The ref declares Troy the winner after the barriers are completely shattered. The crowd is stunned by that crazy power, and Crad demands to know who this kid is. Dominic introduces Troy as the hero who basically defines what true hard work is. Crad lets out a mocking laugh, leaving his assistant totally confused. The king explains that wasn't just hard work, it was a legit high-tier technique. He reveals the kid straight up broke the standard formula for that move, and he turned that mistake into his own super lethal weapon. Crad actually sees the potential in them to become rivals on his level one day. Feeling satisfied, he figures making the trip out here was actually worth it. Out of nowhere, something off to the side catches his eye and totally surprises him. Nudging his master, Dominic says the fight is over and asks what he's staring at. You can see the two of them watching from the stands, keeping an eye on the whole arena. Down below, Troy tries to spark up a chat with Riley, who just stares at him looking super confused, all hyped up. The guy goes for a high five, but it honestly just spooks the girl. Then Troy just grabs her hand, making the girl turn bright red from embarrassment. Seeing this play out, Crowd actually blushes too, because he definitely wasn't expecting this romance trope. Getting way too invested, he straight up gets a nosebleed and immediately calls for his assistant. With no rivals for 1,000 years, Hue and culture basically became his only escape from boredom. Smiling, he asks about the two of them, but Dominic says they're just friends. As an expert in 1,000-year-old tropes, Crad literally laughs out loud hearing they're just friends. Being a total sucker for pure romance, the king can tell the vibe here is way different. He breaks it down as the perfect cliche. We've got the shy girl and the innocent guy. The narrator wraps up that some top-tier actors have finally shown up for him. Getting super hyped, Crad declares that an absolute masterpiece is about to be born. Dominic starts panicking and begs his lord to just wait a second. Totally ignoring his servant, Crad is humming away and already planning out names for the couple's kids. Suddenly, the king's face changes and a massive anger vein pops up on his forehead. A hand taps Dominic's head, making him spin around totally spooked. A smiling guy thanks the servant for tracking down those kids. The subordinate is just frozen in shock by this completely unexpected presence. He questions Crad's plans, reminding him that the master always wanted a real rival. Acting like a teacher, Crad praises the confused student Dominic for asking such a good question. Thus begins the Demon King Theater, which is all about giving these heroes some serious romantic wingman support. Step 2 is going to be the massive and emotional final boss battle against his rival. After that, he plans to fake his own defeat and just run off to have some fun. The final step is to watch their happy life and wedding from a distance. Looking super proud, he asks what they think of his master plan to create new rivals like this. Dominic just shuts up, swallowing a nasty insult he almost let slip out. With zero way to stop his master, the servant just prays that a total disaster doesn't happen. The guy from before agrees, saying that this much talent doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. Getting serious, he states he's totally sure this is the Demon King's influence at work. The vibe gets super heavy as the mystery dude grabs Dominic from behind. Terrified, the servant screams, asking how he didn't even sense the guy standing there. A gray-haired guy shows up and asks if that's his partner. Dominic greets the person and wonders who this new friend of Crad could be. The girl questions Crad's codename and suggests something that sounds a bit more badass. In his shadow form, Crad threatens to rip the girl's legs straight off on the spot. The guy smacks the king right on the head, calling him an idiot for losing his cool. Scolded for almost blowing his cover, Crad shrinks down and instantly apologizes. The girl asks if he's finally here to wipe out the human race. The guy shuts that down, saying he doesn't talk to anyone who disrespects the heroes. He tells her to step up, take some responsibility, and make things happen. Totally confused, the young girl just processes those words in dead silence. Watching the guy walk away, she asks him to be a little more clear about what he means. Figuring this whole thing involves her master, she calls out to him in her head. Troy and his friends show up, and the master realizes they're the interesting thing he was talking about. The camera focus shifts entirely right onto the instructor's face. She thinks back to the accusation that she disgraced the name of all the heroes. Out of nowhere, she just grabs her students by the head while they call her master. Switching gears, the woman says she's straight up craving something sweet. A wicked smirk pops up on her face, letting us know she's totally plotting something. She announces they're getting shaved ice to celebrate, leaving the kids completely shocked. Teasing them, she says the last one there has to share their dessert with Troy, making Riley turn bright red. Looking super satisfied, the master wraps up the scene with her arms thrown around both their shoulders. The camera pans back to Crad, who's already gearing up for a full breakdown. Dominic asks his boss if he can finally explain who that woman actually was. Crad introduces Blee, the former hero who trained our main duo. He explains that she showed up to defeat him, and honestly, she almost sent him packing for good. That massive reveal leaves his servant completely speechless. The king thinks back to how close the fight was and how he totally lost control because he was so hyped. During a final strike, he literally saw his life flash before his eyes, but her blade just barely grazed him. He swears she would have won, but she twisted her sword at the last second and only left a scratch. Since she's human, the recoil left her in critical condition and his disappointment instantly turned into pure rage. The visual shows Crad in his full demonic form, totally ready to counterattack. Right after that, we see Blee's completely battered and bloodied face. He doesn't even remember why he spared her life, but he figures he probably told her to go train some more. Dumbfounded, Dominic can barely even process what he just heard. He realizes that if she had just followed through with that swing, Crad wouldn't even be alive right now. The assistant starts dreading the future, totally predicting a massive headache once these kids level up. Crad totally cuts the heavy vibe and says he's just gonna focus on the two new heroes. Still reeling, the subordinate honestly has no clue how to even react. He figures his master is just super complex and that everything he does must have some deeper meaning. He decides to just quietly follow the king, glad to see the guy actually hyped about something. Fast forward a bit, and Crad is using a disguise to gift some fruit to the new heroes. Troy thanks him for the pricey gift, but asks if he actually knows their master. One of Crad's companions suggests they put the stuff away before they start chatting. Getting super hyped, the kid points out how ridiculously expensive that fruit is. Riley thanks them for being so nice and offers the guests something to drink. But out of nowhere, the guy tagging along with the king totally interrupts the moment. Getting pissed, Blee recognizes the guy and demands to know exactly what he's plotting. Still in his disguise, Crad asks her to play along and promises he won't try anything funny. She just sighs and thanks him for at least still respecting her as a warrior. Meanwhile, somewhere else, a demon is groaning in pain and wondering why the hell he's even there. Flashes of green hair keep messing with his head as he tries to figure out who locked him up. A totally bloodied up hero named Reeve tries to call in a report about a master demon in the area. The creature asks if the human is seriously still underestimating him after all that. Popping up right behind him, the monster points out that the kid's reaction time was way too slow. Right then, the sound of a brutal impact echoes all the way through the forest. Reeve is shown completely wrecked and slammed up against a tree trunk. The red demon casually mentions that the hero is actually super lucky to even be breathing right now. Soon enough, a little tentacle creature pops up looking for some entertainment. Cutting back to the present, Riley is just gripping a cup with a totally shocked look on her face. The setting is the house where Troy, Riley, and Blee are all living together right now. This visit from Hithra, Blee's supposed co-worker, has made the vibe ridiculously awkward. Blee just glares at the guest with her eyes glowing and a straight-up murderous aura. Meanwhile, Crad is still playing along in his disguise with this completely innocent smile. A silent battle of wills has been going down between the two of them for minutes now. Troy definitely feels the tension and thinks the house feels like an absolute vacuum because it's so quiet. Riley feels as she's slowly suffocating from all the intense pressure in the room. Dominic compares the awkwardness to visiting a friend's house and getting stuck in the middle of a family screaming match. Troy decides to finally step in just to break that brutal, heavy silence. He asks Hithra if he really used to work with their master since she never even mentioned it. Hithra teases them, saying Blee loves hiding secrets but was always bragging about her students. Completely out of nowhere, Crad's buddy suggests that Troy should get a new haircut. The hero totally freezes up and starts stuttering, completely caught off guard by the random fashion advice. The guy tells him that snagging that new hero title definitely calls for a fresh look to celebrate. He asks for Riley's take on it, totally jump-scaring her by dragging her into the chat. She replies that even though his hair is super messy, it doesn't really look like it needs changing. But after thinking about it, she blushes and admits a new style could be cute, completely shocking the poor guy. Somewhere else, a demon is whining about how annoying some floating spirit is. Crad's friend pushes for him to get the cut right now, but Troy steps back since it's just way too sudden. Right then, the guy just hands him a fat stack of cash and tells him to keep the change. In a massive rush, Troy says he'll be right back and literally flies out the door. The MC hopes he comes back looking fresh, while Hithra is just confused about the whole haircut thing. Perseus notices that separating the two actually worked perfectly, proving even heroes are desperate for some cash. The Demon King demands to know the real reason they're here, since they obviously didn't come to fight. Getting totally annoyed by the silence, a subordinate tells the MC to just spit out what he wants. The kid says he's gonna drop some secrets since they welcomed him so nicely, which just pisses off the king even more. He promises to share 2 things, and Perseus demands he just spit it out already. He reveals that step 1 was separating Troy from Hyphra, and now it's time for the next phase. The Demon King is totally shocked, having zero clue what the point of this whole scheme even is. Suddenly, a bracelet alert goes off, warning them about a tricky demon over in Sector GAP7. Riley notices that's super close by and announces she's gonna go check it out right now. The king's subordinate stops her, pointing out that Troy probably already headed over there. With a super sharp look, the woman keeps breaking down her theory on what just went down. She points right at the table, showing that Troy completely forgot his hero ring when he ran out. The Demon King is absolutely boiling with rage, since walking around without that ring is super illegal and totally punishable. Knowing Troy isn't stupid, he glares at the MC and realizes this plan was actually brilliant. The mastermind behind this little scam feels the king's death glare and instantly freezes in pure terror. A quick flashback shows the kid asking for some help carrying a super heavy basket. Right after that, the MC faked being confused so he could pull off his sneaky little trick. Meanwhile, in the car, Troy feels a random chill and checks for his ring, getting super confused when he sees it right there. Dominic brushes off the idea of a cold and focuses all his attention straight onto Riley. Holding up the stolen ring, he openly admits the kid is seriously leveling up his skills. Riley says her goodbyes, totally ready for action, and heads straight for the emergency location. The MC tells the hero to stay safe while the rest of them gear up to follow her. But the kid totally blocks Dominic from leaving, which seriously freaks the assistant out. The female subordinate steps up and straight up warns them that nobody is getting past her no matter what. Looking confused, the MC asks what the deal is with this random blockade. She just stays dead silent for a second, rocking a seriously unfriendly look. Then she lets out a massive sigh, making it obvious she is completely over all this nonsense. Right after that, she takes a deep breath and gets into a serious fighting stance. She unleashes this insanely sinister aura and demands that nobody even thinks about crossing that line. The pressure is so intense that the MC and Dominic are straight up terrified. The kid quickly realizes this isn't just some friendly warning, it's a completely real threat. The woman asks if he actually thought she was that dumb and tells him to stop acting like an idiot. She orders him to get out of her face right this second if he knows what's good for him. Staring at the empty room, she just smirks and mentions that he finally learned how to listen. Sighing in relief, she wonders if she should have ordered some sweets for Troy too. Out in the woods, Dominic is coughing on the ground while the MC asks if he's doing alright. Crying and totally wrecked, the lackey says he's gonna drop dead any second now. The kid praises his stamina and is actually pretty shocked by what he's seeing. Apologizing, the MC is seriously impressed by that former hero's raw strength. Then he tells Dominic to get back to work and just focus on getting an update on Riley. But he gives his partner permission to curse him out mentally exactly 10 times. Lost out in the woods, a tentacle demon begs to be let go so he can just go home. He threatens a dude on the ground, demanding he hand over some valuable item right now. Right then, he starts screaming in total desperation, exactly like he did with the others. In the background, the defeated guys call out for their president while the monster just watches. The beast complains that his current opponent isn't a woman for a change. Riley comes flying in and reports she found the target in Sector GAQ5. Noticing the girl showing up, this guy Tento reacts with total surprise and interest. The hero calls for medical backup for the civilians and just kicks off the fight right on the spot. Totally euphoric, the creature screams in joy over finally getting to fight a woman. Right after that, he charges into the attack using every single bit of strength he's got. Riley gets ready and spawns a huge mass of black ink right in the palm of her hand. Swinging her brand new inkatana, she unleashes a totally flawless strike. The tentacles get sliced clean off, and the monster has zero clue what just happened. Staring at the pieces on the ground, he wonders what kind of crazy OP technique this even is. With her sword resting on her shoulder, Riley questions his absolute audacity for trying to block that hit. Looking completely badass, she demands to know exactly who this creature is right now. Staring down the enemy with a dead serious look, she shows she's totally ready for a brawl. Watching from afar, an observer praises our hero's super aggressive performance. He reveals he literally set up this whole stage just to test how much she's leveled up. With a quick gesture, he challenges her to prove she's actually got the talent to be his rival. Tento drops a sinister smile, gearing up for round 2. Riley stays completely focused while the watcher basically announces the start of the match. The The peace and quiet of the forest gets completely shattered out of nowhere by this massive brawl. The ground completely cracks from a giant impact, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. Tento chases the girl down and asks why she's running away if she came here to arrest him. Totally silent and focused, the hero grips her sword without letting his trash talk distract her. The monster keeps pushing it and begs to hear her voice while he's chasing her. While she's dodging, he fakes being super hurt just to troll her. Mocking her, he asks if she's really gonna stay quiet for much longer. Spawning a portal, he threatens to drag a dying scream right out of her. The monster goes all out and attacks using one of those massive tentacles. Without even flinching, Riley activates her special ink domain technique. Blocking the hit, she spreads her ink all over the surrounding area. Tento completely trash talks her sword skills, saying those cuts don't even tickle him. He doesn't even realize the ink is sticking to literally every tree around them. Soon enough, a super deep cut just randomly appears on one of the nearby trunks out of nowhere. A creepy red eye snaps open right inside the crack of the tree, locking onto the demon. The MC watches all this totally impressed and praises the skills she stacked up over 3 years, all hyped up with popcorn and 3D glasses. He asks for Dominic's take on the fight. His partner just grumbles and cries while listening to his master's live commentary. Down on the battlefield, this Tento guy is just totally lost and confused. Looking around, he realizes he completely zoned out while checking out the cute girl. Riley calls in her new position and announces she's gonna wrap this fight up right now. The monster notices she totally makes up for her lack of raw strength with insane speed and dodging. He figures out she's a legit pro and complains about getting ignored just because she's on the radio. Suddenly, all that talk about a bracelet sets off a major red flag in the creature's head. The demon realizes a top-tier fighter like this wouldn't just show up without a damn good reason. Pointing a tentacle right at her, he asks if the kid is an official register hero. Getting super hyped, Tento brags that he's gonna kill her exactly like he did to the other bracelet owners. Riley just stays dazed listening to her rival's completely empty threats. When he tries to start some backstory, she completely cuts him off and asks why he stalls so much. Watching from afar, the MC tells him to skip the cutscene, but Dominic reminds him this is a live broadcast. One of the watchers points out that the demon's mouth is way too big for his own good. Totally confused by the comment, Tento asks what the hell that even means. Riley explains that he's just stalling for time while he literally tangles himself up in the trees. The shot shows his limbs all tied up in knots, and she totally roasts him by asking if he needs a hand. Looking super confident, the hero declares that with him looking like that, there is 0 chance she loses this fight. Challenging the monster, she tells him to stop holding back and use all that hidden power he's got. The creature actually chokes in surprise of the sheer absolute audacity and disrespect coming from this girl. Then he just bursts into maniacal laughter, perfectly synced up with the MC watching from a distance. Tento apologizes for cracking up and admits he totally fell right into the cutie's little trap. Getting dead serious now, he praises her actual strategy and completely stops messing around with this fight. The villain grabs Riley right by the leg and screams that he caught her, but she doesn't even flinch. Laughing out loud, he claims his limbs don't actually get tangled and completely mocks her failed plan. But the demon pauses for a quick second to actually process the whole situation. He asks himself why he's even this happy and warns her he is absolutely not letting go of her leg. He tells the kid to just hold still and die, but decides he's gonna grant her final dying wish anyway, remembering her little taunt. He decides to completely unleash all his stored up power. A massive wave of tentacles charges forward while he dares Riley to try and block this one. One of the spectators points out that this super aggressive attitude doesn't even match the hero's usual vibe. Thinking the taunt was kinda random, he asks Dominic for his technical breakdown. The servant totally agrees it's out of character for her, but says he expected exactly this from Tento. He keeps his eyes glued to the monster's movements to fully wrap up his theory. He figures that even though the plan seems way too basic for a girl at her level, Tento's IQ is straight up low enough to swallow that bait hook, line, and sinker. Suddenly, she slices right through his bindings, leaving the monster completely clueless. He tries to analyze the trick, totally shocked that she just cut through what was supposed to be impenetrable. Finally, the realization hits him, and he figures out the answer was honestly way too obvious. It was a move that Tento's pure arrogance stopped him from predicting in time. The truth is she literally always had the raw strength to slice him entirely to pieces. Riley basically lured him in so he'd dump all his power into one single spot. She activates her ink realm, and the OP technique totally sweeps across the entire battlefield, completely dominating the zone. The hero pushes forward and just shreds everything in her path. With an absolutely ice-cold glare, she stares down her opponent, totally ready to deliver the finishing blow. The narration breaks down that Tento's confidence actually had a legit technical reason behind it. It turns out he can actually harden his tentacles, but only for super short bursts of time. On top of that, those limbs can literally feel the force of an impact to gauge a rival's power level. After Riley whiffed her first few strikes, he genuinely believed she was completely harmless. Her fake plan to trap him in the trees only backed up his completely wrong theory. But he was dead wrong, and now he's just watching her charge at him in absolute disbelief. In the blink of an eye, the girl dashes forward and straight up obliterates every single obstacle in front of her. Totally desperate, Tento calls her a coward for hiding her actual power level like that. He tries his hardest to keep calm so he can make a split-second choice and save his own skin. Even up close, he thinks about fighting back, but Riley is already charging up another massive attack. He drops the idea immediately, realizing he can barely even defend against whatever is coming next. His eyes shoot wide open in pure panic as he watches the girl closing in for the kill. Sensing this is the end, Tento decides to completely trust his gut and try a blind block. Focusing hard to react in time, he screams out that he finally figured out her master plan. His instinct targets the exact spot with zero hesitation, the right side of his own neck. Predicting the hit, he braces for impact, totally ready to tank the blow. But Riley just casually pops up giving her report, calling in her ID and wrapping up the mission. She radios in that there are no new details and says she'll wait for the cleanup crew right there. Only then do we see Tento lying totally flat on the ground with a massive hole blown straight through his chest. She wraps it up with target completely subjugated, while the system screen pops up confirming the official dub. Watching from afar, Crad checks out the recording of the fight with a super thoughtful look on his face. Getting hyped, he says it was actually pretty fun and drops a solid 9.8 rating for her performance. Dominic thought the fight was totally boring and asks why he docked off the 0.2. Crad complains that they completely forgot the caramel popcorn and tells his servant to step it up next time. Super annoyed, Dominic thinks about his brand new humiliating job as the official popcorn guy. He takes a deep breath, trying to calm down, just accepting that he's the weakest link around here. While snacking away, Crad randomly gets totally jump scared by someone randomly showing up. An unknown voice starts talking to him without even showing their face. The MC pops up with a smirk and tells Dominic to hold off on cutting the broadcast just yet. Back on the battlefield, Riley just stares at her own hand, feeling like something's totally off. Looking worried, she wonders if her suspicions are actually spot on. Right then, the MC shows up offering some chocolate and asks if she's completely wiped out. Surprised, she notices how exhausted her master looks and asks if he's feeling alright. He stretches out and casually mentions that her current lifestyle has been super exhausting lately. Without really getting it, the girl takes the candy and just starts snacking away. The MC totally freaks out, screaming for her to stop, leaving Riley completely embarrassed. With this super evil look, he asks if she seriously didn't taste the poison in the snack. The two of them stand face to face in this moment of pure dramatic tension. Riley stutters, saying she wouldn't fall for that, but the system warning straight up confirms she did. With a super determined look, she suddenly seems to have an epiphany about what she really wants. The MC tells her she doesn't trust her own natural talent and totally underestimates herself way too much. He asks if Troy's influence is rubbing off on her, leaving the girl totally completely shook. Flashing a tiny smirk, he keeps dropping some serious advice for his student. He suggests she just chill out and stick to simple approaches, whether it's against monsters or people. She thinks back to the fight, honestly surprised Tento fell for something so completely basic. Looking totally confused, she asks if the master wants her using faster strikes and what the ideal pattern should be. From a distance, the MC asks if Dominic can actually control Tento's dead tentacles. The assistant confirms he can, and the kid orders him to fire whenever he's ready. Instantly, a tentacle gets launched like a super high-speed projectile. The attack completely whizzes right past Riley, who just watches it without even flinching. Looking thoughtful, she admits she still hasn't totally grasped the core point of her master's lesson. She thinks maybe Troy could actually help her figure out what the master is trying to say. But the MC cuts her off, saying he actually has something super important to say about the guy. He completely drops a bomb, telling her to just go find another guy instead of crushing on Troy. Getting totally pissed, Riley starts screaming and asking what the hell is wrong with her friend. She makes it super clear she will not tolerate anyone insulting Troy, not even her own master. The kid keeps being super dramatic, but she claps back, saying Troy is beautiful and absolutely perfect. Seeing how furious she is, he apologizes and gives her a hug to basically calm the beast. Getting back on track, he casually mentions that even though Dent's completely oblivious, Troy might not notice. One day, if she's ever in serious danger, something really special could actually happen between them. He questions if Troy would even show up acting like Prince Charming to save her skin. Inside the simulation, Riley pops up completely surrounded by tentacles in a seriously critical situation. Out of nowhere, Troy shows up blocking the attack and just screams her name at the top of his lungs. In that exact moment, the girl feels completely vulnerable and instantly turns bright red. Looking totally desperate, the guy grabs her by the shoulders and asks if she's alright. Meanwhile, the MC is watching this whole scene play out from the absolute best seat in the house. He totally cracks up laughing and does a fist pump, absolutely loving how this plan is going. While munching on a skewer, the kid casually asks if the demon in that sector has been contained yet. He completely ignored it earlier because it was too far, but decides to check it out and instantly gives up out of pure laziness. Hearing the sector is literally right next to his house, his blood runs cold because his ring completely failed to warn him. He checks his hand and realizes in absolute disbelief that the accessory straight up vanished. It turns out the fake copy Dominic whipped up was literally programmed to just disappear after a little while. Totally desperate, he takes off running and screaming for the portal to just pop up already. He peeks through a little crack, absolutely terrified of what he might find on the other side. To his surprise, he sees that Riley is actually already there, looking super worried. Feeling relieved, he figures she just soloed the whole thing and the monster is already toast. But the body on the ground right next to the hero starts moving, and she doesn't even notice the danger creeping up. The thing gets up and the MC totally freezes in shock when he realizes that is absolutely not a demon. It is a straight-up identical copy of himself, completely using ink powers. He gets jump-scared so hard he literally drops his snack right onto the floor. The doppelganger charges at Riley swinging a completely black ink blade. He attacks super fast and the MC screams her name, totally unable to do anything to help. The strike lands a clean hit, completely blasting the girl away from the pure impact. She hits the ground totally terrified while the clone just stabilizes and watches the whole scene play out. Far away from there, the popcorn fanatic realizes the flavor totally magically changed to caramel. We see both of them from behind, with the kid looking super confused about the random flavor swap. He shakes Dominic up and completely demands to know why the hell he's feeling this weird vibe. The servant asks why the popcorn suddenly has this super sweet caramel taste. The Lord absolutely geeks out, saying Troy's rescue was exactly as sweet as a literal romance movie. Looking completely terrifying, the fanatic demands to know who directed that scene while the servant just brushes him off. Dominic replies that his master is just obsessed with that stuff, looking completely mentally drained. A few days later, Troy wraps up his story and the MC finally pieces the whole situation together. But the kid asks why he's randomly bringing up this old, completely ancient topic right now. Troy is just down on his knees, totally sweating, while Riley stands behind him looking completely anxious. He says he noticed the master looked sick and finally decided to confess his massive mistake with the ring. The MC stares at the accessory and totally realizes why all this completely unnecessary drama even happened. Riley is struggling, watching Troy willingly accept literally any punishment for his massive screw-up. So the MC calls the kid over and makes a quick comment about his outfit. Acting totally dramatic, the hero bows his head like a totally repentant sinner, but he just gets completely bonked on the head by a golden halo and starts complaining about the pain. The master asks why his hair looks the exact same if he was supposed to get a fresh new cut. Looking totally confused, Troy admits he actually blew all of Hythra's money on snacks along the way. The MC gives his student some head pats and says it's completely fine, no big deal at all. He tells him to be a little more careful, and Riley congratulates her friend for literally surviving this whole ordeal. He thinks about how this is honestly the first time Troy ever messed up and basically got away with it completely. He figures it's not even really the kid's fault since he literally never walks around without his ring. Plus, a demon showed up in a spot where they literally almost never spawn. The kid totally connects the dots and realizes this entire massive mess is exclusively the Demon King's fault. With a totally furious glare, he stares the guy down and demands to know if he's finally done with all this nonsense. Kuro calls off the break and tells Troy it's time to get right back to the hardcore training. The MC claps back, reminding him that he already gave him the rundown on this. Completely mocking him, Kuro admits he heard him but just laughs and goes, "So what?" Flashing back, Kuro shows up all hyped up, claiming he's an old buddy of the master. Troy is totally shocked since he's never even heard of this supposedly close friend. The MC just grumbles that even he didn't know he had so many buddies popping out of the woodwork. Hydra tries to shoo the intruder away so the boys can rest, but Kuro just completely ignores him. Kuro decides to run a special training session, and Hydra tries to stop the crazy bastard. Troy gets completely hyped, hoping this new technique will finally fix his slow speed. Flashing a smile, Kuro promises this little bootcamp is gonna fix the problem right up. He offers to step up as his guide and turn this giant bear of a guy into an actual human. This completely random offer actually wins Troy over on the spot. Without any other option, the MC and Riley tag along for the training until we snap right back to the present. Seeing this, our MC just just lets out a super long sigh. The pink-haired girl totally roasts her master's reading routine. Getting annoyed, the MC asks why Kuro is so obsessed with harassing his students. Charging right at Troy, Kuro warns him that he could switch up his tactics at any second. He completely pauses out of nowhere and calls the kid's name out. Totally terrified, Troy answers immediately while keeping a tight grip on his staff. Kuro pauses the whole session to drop a mid-training evaluation right on the spot. The result leaves Troy in total shock. His skills are literally impossible to rank. Kuro reminds the kid that he told him to fight at full power without holding back. He explains that Troy's body completely locks up right before landing any actual effective hits. The MC notices his student is completely holding back because he doesn't want to hurt someone he knows. Kuro complains that demons basically never show up around there for a legit test of strength. Getting tense, the MC instantly figures out exactly where this is going. Sweating bullets, he agrees that monsters don't usually hang around the village at all. Riley falls right into the trap and brings up the demon that just recently spawned. Kuro suggests they patrol the exact spot the girl mentioned. You know, just to be safe. Totally deadpan. The MC complains about this insanely forced coincidence. Next thing you know, the squad is hiding in the woods, completely staking out the perimeter. And a demon straight up actually appears on the scene looking completely lost. The beast spots the humans and starts sweating buckets out of pure panic. This monster named Rubinetta realizes he somehow ended up right in human territory. Kuro suggests that Troy should solo the creature right now as his final test. Riley totally freaks out, but the narration shifts entirely to the whole combat experience. Flashing a completely evil smirk, Kuro thinks this duo actually has some crazy potential. He brags that these two literally never disappoint his expectations. Troy takes a deep breath and readies his staff, looking totally locked in. Flashing back, Rubinetta questions why they're sacrificing the other demons. The Demon King corrects him, saying they're only dumping problematic trash-tier guys like Tento. He breaks down how Tento is just a sadistic coward who needs to get wiped out anyway. Rubinetta realizes the king is a ruler who stays totally plugged into everything. The boss confirms Tento is going to face off against Riley just to put on a solid show. He goes quiet for a second to really think about what to do with Troy. Then he admits that picking the right opponent for the kid is honestly a huge pain. He wonders if the hero could even handle fighting the pink-haired girl. The fight kicks off in the Ink Realm with Troy charging straight at his opponent. The kid unleashes a super fast strike to slice the pink enemy right open. Caught completely off guard by the speed, the demon's eyes go wide in pure shock, but he still manages to block the hit and complains that Troy attacked without even a warning. Totally mocking him, he points out that the kid's hands are straight up shaking like crazy. Looking dead serious, Troy stares down the demon who's calling him a total hillbilly. Kuro breaks down how the scattered strike technique literally uses ink as raw energy. Riley thinks it's kinda weird he knows that, but Kuro says Troy totally spilled the beans during training. In a flashback, the guy admits he doesn't have her natural talent, which makes the girl absolutely furious. She thinks about how they stopped training together, and she just completely forgot this one key detail. Watching the brawl, she realizes Troy looks way more badass when he's actually being serious. Riley notices how much her friend has leveled up when she remembers the moves he used with Kuro. Blushing bright red, the girl feels like her heart is gonna straight up explode just thinking about it. The narration points out that someone else is totally stressed too, but for a way worse reason. Kuro pops in to announce he set up the special little event for total actor immersion. An observer studies the pink demon and gets this weird feeling he's seen him before. After checking a wanted poster, he confirms the villain is totally accused of kidnapping kids. Completely scoffing at it, Hither suspects that last charge is just straight up made up. The villager decides they absolutely can't let the monster get away and runs off to warn Troy. Right then, the hero pauses his attack when he notices a call coming in from Riley. Annoyed, the demon complains that Troy rushed in to attack and is now just standing around mumbling. Riley warns him to show zero mercy because this enemy has crossed every single line. Tento claims he's a big deal in the demon realm and asks if Troy has completely lost his mind. Giving off a completely dark aura, Troy asks if he's the one who's been kidnapping those kids. Looking totally confused, the pink guy explains he's stuck in his own realm and never does that kind of stuff. He insists they've got the wrong guy, completely mocking them and saying he doesn't abduct anyone. Flashing a super sinister smile, he admits he tried eating kids once but honestly hated the taste. Troy's expression completely drops into a state of pure, quiet rage. The demon shuts down the talk and announces he's going for the first strike now. He readies his fist, completely wrapped up in a pink ribbon gauntlet, and he unleashes a massive, heavy punch aimed straight at the kid. The raw impact triggers a giant explosion on the ground, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. Watching from afar, Riley gets pretty shaken, realizing the opponent is way stronger than she expected. Kuro realizes this is gonna be a crazy tough challenge, but decides to just stay completely out of the fight. He knows for a fact the kid wouldn't accept any outside help right now anyway. Deep down, the master is absolutely 100% sure Troy is going to take the W. Suddenly, Troy blocks the attack using his signature ink wave technique. Kuro recognizes the scattered stroke move, totally used to throw up a solid defense. He smiles seeing that Troy basically copy-pasted Riley's exact flawless move. Shocked by the barrier, the demon notes the kid actually has quite a few tricks up his sleeve. Out of literally nowhere, the villain goes into a state of total shock. Looking at the ink trail left behind, he realizes the hero has straight up vanished. He figures out Troy totally blocked his line of sight just to find an opening to strike, but he doesn't even notice the kid is already mid-air, jumping right over his head. The boy screams as it completely launches himself into a super aggressive aerial slam. The pink guy trash talks, saying Troy's perception is way too slow and the attack is completely useless. He quickly spins his body around to perfectly line up a brutal counterattack, and he straight up fires off his massive sword aura slash right at the hero. Standing his ground, Troy stares down the incoming attack looking completely locked in. The demon totally mocks the attempt and calls the guy a complete hard-headed idiot. The camera pans out to show the huge gap between the spectators and the actual brawl. Our MC points out that Troy is seriously struggling to keep up in this fight. The Demon King finally remembers the villain's actual name. It's Rubenetta. Kuro notices the guy crystallized his body and worries he messed up the power balance. Laughing, the pink demon tells Troy to just keep punching until his hands give out. The MC thinks he picked a good opponent, but maybe he pushed it too far. Looking at the kid's energy, he doesn't see anything changing at all. He figures the hard work fanatic is going to beat himself to death until his hands completely break. Suddenly, Kuro notices something weird, and the demon gets confused too. Shocked, the villain watches his own crystal chest get straight up pierced by the blade. In disbelief, Kuro wonders if there was some chemical trick or outside help. A blinding light burst from the impact, proving the fight just flipped. The force of the strike expands and completely shatters the magic defense. Rubenetta feels the shockwave and starts panicking as the hits get way heavier. Freaking out, he realizes Troy is literally breaking through his defense with raw brute force. Cold as ice, Troy decides he's only got one option: smash every single crystal in his way. The demon freezes when he sees that ruthless determination in the hero's eyes. Gripping his weapon, Troy straight up says he'll try as many times as it takes. In a flashback, Kuro wonders where little Troy sneaks off to every single night. At 12 years old, the kid gets startled and asks how his master found out. Kuro brings up the early morning trips, but Troy confesses he just doesn't want to bother Riley. The master asks if he feels inferior to his friend's special talent. Looking down, totally embarrassed, the little hero admits that he does. Kuro comforts his student, saying Riley is just built different, and he's doing great. Surprised by the rare compliment, the kid's eyes go wide at his master. The mentor says he's super dedicated and tells him not to suffer all on his own. Troy agrees to head home but asks to break just one more thing first. Complaining about the cold, Kuro completely freezes when he sees what the kid wants to destroy. Standing in front of a massive boulder, Troy confirms his training target. Mind blown, the master realizes that's already the fourth giant rock the kid has obliterated. The young guy explains he just kept hitting it until the obstacle gave way. Kuro is totally speechless, doing the classic anime sweat drop. He calls the kid a total meathead, but Troy swears his form is perfect. Raising his sword, he screams and unleashes a strike with all his energy. Back in the present, Troy shatters Rubenetta's armor in one epic attack. The impact sends the demon spinning through the air while crystals fly everywhere. Rubenetta begs for mercy, totally baffled by the kid's infinite stamina. Dead serious, Troy stares down his opponent without showing a single ounce of fatigue. Smiling, the hero feels his strikes getting their old heavy weight back. Seeing his defeat coming, the villain plans to just spam his defense regeneration. Flashing an intense aura, he promises to hold out until the kid's blade completely dulls. But Troy swings again and absolutely wrecks the monster's healing for a second time. Laid out and totally broken, Rubenetta stutters, begging to call off the fight right there. The narration explains that masters read internal energy to predict their opponent's moves. Kuro remembers he could see the whole strategy behind every move Riley made, but his eyes light up when he realizes Troy's flow is a complete mystery. In a flashback, some warrior challenges the Demon King Krad, screaming about glory. The invader promises a light attack, just to flex his supposed superiority. Kuro could see the guy's energy was tense and that he was actually gonna go all out. To the king, that whole fake act was just pathetic to watch. Today, Curl admits he easily reads even Riley and Blee's energy flows. He stays super intrigued because he just can't decode the energy coming from Troy. Aether calls out to him, all spooked, and he apologizes for zoning out so hard. Kuro points to the battlefield and lets her know the fight is finally over. Rubinetta coughs up blood and desperately begs them to just hear him out. On his knees and totally defeated, he swears he'll never step foot in the human world again. Troy looks at him with pure disgust, doubting a demon who allegedly ate kids for dinner. Hithra notices the monster actually feels wronged by the fake rumors. Troy says that rumor doesn't change the villain's ultimate fate one bit. He explains his duty as a hero is to wipe out demons as fast as possible. Panicking, Rubinetta tries to buy some time to get his crystals back. He screams for a chance to explain himself, catching the guy totally off guard. The demon begs to clear his name before getting sent to the Shadow Realm. The MC stares at his enemy with that super dark, heavy expression. From a distance, Kuro sees the movement and knows the moment has arrived. He kicks himself for focusing so much on energy that he totally missed what the monster said. Troy stays completely silent for a few seconds, just watching the guy. Far away from there, Riley also ends up looking super surprised. She blushes when she sees Troy calling, and Hydra already thinks the vibe is awkward. Over the radio, the kid asks if the target has anything else besides the pink hair. Riley gets annoyed by the question, but Troy promises he isn't gonna let the guy escape. The girl gets the message and says she's gonna double-check the intel right now. She looks over the demon sighting notice paper right there in her hand. She starts reading the traits listed on the document out loud. The little detail about curly hair leaves Rubinetta completely shell-shocked. Looking dead inside, Troy mutters about how insanely bizarre this whole thing is. He thanks his partner for the help and just cuts the comms. Annoyed, the hero drops a quiet, super grumpy remark. Rubinetta sobs and apologizes to his executioner one more time. Crying, he begs to know if his curls look natural or totally fried. The scene cuts to a peaceful forest under this bright blue sky. Out of nowhere, a massive explosion kicks up a huge dust cloud through the trees. Covered in ink, Troy reports his victory over that so-called smart demon. The camera focuses on Rubinetta's stained and totally defeated body. The kid ends his report and the system instantly confirms the win. Watching from afar, Riley and Hythra break down how the whole thing played out. Riley sighs in relief, but Hythra thinks it's super sketchy that so many monsters keep spawning. Kuro watches everything with a dead serious glare, his red eyes glowing. He agrees the situation is sketchy, which just makes his partner even more nervous. Kuro spots someone in the distance and confirms the silhouette looks a lot like Blef. Master Blef pops up on the horizon, walking straight toward them. Tento mocks her anger, laughing that she actually came back after the warning. He taunts her, saying she should have killed him back when she was still healthy. Blif listens in total silence, her face half covered by her hair. She admits to herself that the villain's little jokes are actually true, giving off a super dark aura. She wonders how she's even gonna beat this guy now. Tento feels the pressure and complains about the hero's empty hostility. He asks if she stopped him just to try for some kind of dumb deal. In a flashback, a creepy dude tells her to let him go if she wants to live. Blef holds him tight and warns him she'll kill him if he tries anything funny. The guy asks if he works as a hostage, but she shuts that hope right down. She explains his master would have already made a move if he cared about his goons. She says he's important and asks if he finally gets where the line is drawn. Completely terrified, the guy immediately starts sweating bullets. Back in the present, Kuro watches the whole scene play out from behind. He says so keep that intel in mind while Bulaf just glares dead serious at Tento. All of a sudden, the pink demon gets slammed into the ground with some absolute badass force. Realizing there's zero chance of forgiveness, he dips out, screaming that he's heading back to the castle. Blef stays totally still and cold-blooded, surrounded by this crazy fiery aura. Kuro turns around and calls the ex-hero by her name. He points out that she's definitely not acting like your average hero. Laughing it off, she says she never even wanted to carry that title anyway. Right after that, she just starts floating away from the spot. Kuro watches her leave, just thinking about how incredibly annoying she can be. The scene cuts to this massive demon castle right under a blood-red sky. Someone is just sitting there waiting on the steps of this giant staircase. It's Roko, complaining that everyone is taking way too long to show up. Suddenly, she gets spooked by this weird noise coming from nearby. Dominic comes running up, completely out of breath and looking totally exhausted. He drops to his knees in front of the Demon King and announces the squad's return. Crad acknowledges the hustle and orders the guy to go get some rest. Rocco runs over all worried about Dominic, but he says he's fine and just keeps his eyes on the boss. The servant apologizes for losing his cool during a mission. The king chills him out and asks if he understands why he isn't getting punished. Smiling, he straight up says that none of this was Dominic's fault. He tells the guy to rest up and genuinely praises Rocco for holding it down. He doesn't show a single hint of lying or any leftover anger. Back in his real body, Tento gets super annoyed that he got hit by a totally broken dude. He admits that the power creep of Blef's students is just straight up absurd. He figures that sending trash-tier mobs right now would just ruin their training. So he realizes that to get his perfect romance and a worthy rival, he's gonna need actors who are actually on the same level as these kids. The scene cuts to this European-style tavern over in another town. Up at the bar, Blef orders the absolute strongest drink on the menu. The owners of the joint are totally shocked when they recognize who just walked in. Silk screams her friend's name, totally blown away since she hasn't heard from her in forever. She hugs her, super happy to see her looking healthy even after she ghosted them. Hook proudly announces he leveled up his tray fried rice recipe. He promises to whip up a special dish if she's here for a meal. Blif just looks totally disgusted, while Silk completely ignores her husband's hype. The ex-hero asks for a light omelet instead, which totally ticks Hook off. She roasts his super greasy food and the two of them just start bickering. Changing the subject, Silk asks how Troy and Riley are doing these days. Blif swears that, despite all the crazy stuff, the kids are safe and sound. Hook grumbles that they probably look malnourished since they aren't eating his food. Silk calls him a total man-child, saying he only ever grew in size. Smirking, Blef tells him he should just see their progress for himself. Hook gets super confused, totally missing the point of her random invite. Right on cue, Troy's voice rings through the tavern saying he found their master. The duo walks in, saying hi to the owners and asking how everyone's doing. Silk and Hook totally freeze up when they see how much the kids have grown. The woman is completely stunned. She asks when they got so big and questions their outfits. Troy proudly explains that these are their official hero uniforms. Hook loses his mind and yells at Blyden for hiding the fact that her students leveled up. The master looks super awkward dealing with her friends over the top screaming. The couple starts spoiling the duo with food and cash, making Troy just awkwardly stay quiet. The chat keeps rolling while the camera pans to the outside of the tavern. Hook brings up how long they've been at it and asks if hero work is a lot different these days. Troy explains the daily grind is mostly just patrols and demon hunting quests. He says he's in uniform because of his shift today and mentions he bumped into Riley on the way over. With her mouth completely stuffed with bread, the girl shows off that classic shy vibe right at the counter. Silk asks if just bread is really gonna fill her up, but Riley promises she's totally satisfied. Hook remembers she's been obsessed with plain croissants ever since she was a little kid. Blyden points out how the tavern owner literally remembers every single tiny detail. He laughs and says he totally won the kid's trust by bribing her with fresh bread. Troy offers her a drink, and his partner just stutters out a thank you, completely blushing. Silk brings up the rumors about them soloing demons and getting super famous. The duo plays it super humble, which just leaves the tavern owner totally confused. Clapping monsters in just their first month on the job definitely earned them some serious respect. But obviously all the haters quickly spun their success into toxic rumors. Some salty hero starts complaining, wondering if people are sleeping on him just because Troy got famous overnight. Another guy brags that he could have easily beat the same monster, but gets told off for talking trash. Two fighters bring up the fact that Riley literally pulled off the exact same feat. One of them mentions he's on patrol with her tomorrow. His buddy looks at him like he's crazy for not knowing. The MC blushes when he realizes the guys are only acting shy because Riley is a girl. Riley calls out her gossiping co-worker, completely exhausted from dealing with the exact same nonsense. Silk notices how burned out the kids look, but her husband says not everyone feels that kind of pressure. Bledin says she totally gets it. She used to deal with annoying pickup lines all the time back in her prime. A flashback shows a young Hook hanging out at the bar counter with his mentor. Both guys were just hardcore staring at Bledin while she had her back turned. Furious, she screams at the old guy for creeping on her. Troy straight up points right at Hook and his master. The mentor yells at Troy about his manners, but the kid just throws the blame right back onto his master. The scene cuts suddenly back to the outside of the tavern. Troy lets everyone know he's heading out to cover his guard shift. Blee says a super cheerful goodbye, which feels totally weird and out of character for her. Out of nowhere, she gets her cheek pinched super hard and lets out a scream. Riley scolds her master for smacking Troy way too hard like that. Blee teases her, asking if she has a crush on the guy, and the girl begs her to shut up. Silk pops up out of nowhere and straight up asks if Riley is still in love with her partner. Completely frozen and in shock, the girl asks how she even found out about her secret. Silk says even Hook noticed it. Her husband chimes in, saying Troy is literally the only one who's clueless. With her face burning red, Riley throws out a super rush goodbye and literally books it away from the tavern. Silk laughs while Blyden just sighs, pointing out that kids seriously never change. The master says thanks for the grub and gets ready to bounce, but Silk stops her. Blyden totally panics, thinking she's about to get some annoying gift. Silk just stares her down and asks who said she even had a choice. Smiling, the tavern owner just asks for a simple goodbye hug. The ex-hero processes the random request, looking completely dead serious. Silk gives her this giant hug, complaining about how her friend went MIA for all this time. She says she'd be super bummed if the reason was what she thinks it is, but she totally gets it. She tells her to visit more often and promises they'll always remember her as the great hero Blyden. Blyden realizes she just let herself get completely talked into showing up, even though she really didn't need to. Finally giving in to the wholesome vibe, she admits to herself that the hug actually feels pretty damn good. Customers start whispering that she's gotta be Blyden. You know, the badass heroine who actually faced the king. One guy straight up calls her a total fraud. He claims she's just leeching off society. Then out of nowhere, the dude trash-talking the master just freezes in pure terror. Hook pulls up looking massive and intimidating. He's got this super creepy smile on his face. Dead serious. He tells them to either talk about heroes out loud or get the heck out right now. The customer's totally spooked. He yells that the owner lost his mind and bolts, swearing he'll never come back. Hook just groans, super annoyed that those guys ruined such a hyped moment. Blyden says a little prayer hoping this peace actually lasts. That's literally all she wants right now. Meanwhile, in some dark spot, a demon is super confused why everyone is here without any orders from Krod. Tento transforms and announces a wild test. Whoever captures the duo gets total obedience from the king. And man, that offer leaves the whole squad shook. Nobody even knows how to react to that. Right then, we get a flashback to 3 years ago. That's when Tento made a promise to himself. He swore he'd tackle absolutely any obstacle that got in his way. Cutting back to Dominic, he's feeling totally lost, but he's already at the point of no return. Then the rock giant Terra asks if the deal is legit. He wants to know if he'd actually get to call the shots. But Only just cuts him off. He calls the dude a rockbrain and tells him to move out of the way. Only gets mad pissed and glares right at him. He demands to know what the heck he thinks he's doing. So Terra claps right back. He says Only is an absolute embarrassment to the entire demon realm. Only just laughs it off. He says the rankings are a total joke now if some cheap knockoff wants to throw down. He straight up challenges the rock guy. He promises to build a tombstone out of his leftover rubble. Watching this whole beef go down, a hooded demon starts sweating bullets. He knows things are about to get real ugly. Nearby, Raber begs Catanatio to step in. He figures they should help since he and Terra actually have a connection. But Catanatio couldn't care less. He calls everyone there weak trash and tells Raber to get lost too. Right then, the vibe gets super heavy. Raber drops the act and puts on a dead serious face. He's literally foaming at the mouth with rage. He demands to know what the guy just said to him. Catanatio just glares back with these glowing red eyes. He gives him exactly one chance to take it back. But then Frauder steps up. He's this demon in black armor, and he demands an apology for his brother. Watching from the sidelines, 2 others point out how teamwork with this squad is a complete disaster. The girl totally agrees. She says they're somehow even worse than the 2 meatheads fighting over there. The 2 of them stand side by side. Honestly, she looks mad annoyed by this whole mess. Out of nowhere, she punches him in the chest and calls him gross. He just whines that she's always picking on him. Another demon watches this and calls her totally unhinged. He just sighs at how trash tier their race can be. Rocco asks why Tento isn't stopping the fight, but he already knows nobody would even listen to him. Then Asila steps up. She tells everyone to stop making total fools of themselves in front of the king. It looks like he's finally decided to shut this whole clown show down. Kral is straight up panicking now. He begs to play peacemaker and pleads for the king to say something. But Tento completely ignores him. He just says he'll be back in 3 minutes and looks away. Seeing that Asila is about to make a move, the little guy tells Dominic to protect Rocco right now. Dominic agrees, but they're both pretty confused by this random request. So he gives the girl a heads up that he's gonna hold her hand. He just asks her to roll with it. Looking a bit awkward, she holds out her hand. He grabs it super gently. That actually takes her by surprise. She realizes his touch is really warm and and comforting. Right then, this chick with Ramhorn shows up. She tells everyone to hold their breath, and just like that, she starts a countdown. She drops the number 1. The countdown slowly keeps going as she says the number 2. On 3, she flashes a grin and tells everyone to shut the heck up already. Instantly, this crushing pressure slams into the brawlers. They're completely paralyzed by fear. Holding his hand, Rocco feels like she's being wrapped up in warm blankets. But a second later, the air goes ice cold. A dark, spiky tail suddenly pops into the scene. After all, even though they exist, there's barely any record of dragons. That makes them absolute legends. They say humans and demons are just loose threads, but a dragon's bloodlust, that's a knot you just can't untie. Panning to the beast's intense glare, we find out that whoever controls the energy is the one calling the shots. The dragon lady dares anyone who didn't like her peacemaking to fight for the number 2 spot. Wrapped up in her own tale, she says she'll handle it all solo. She orders her brothers to fall back. Hearing that lecture, Stacy goes into full shock. She starts crying and completely hides her face. She tries to stutter out an apology, but the dragon lady shuts her down immediately. She says she's just disappointed. Looking bored out of her mind, the dragon lady can't even believe she's being interrupted. The other demons are mad pissed about this. One of them even starts swearing at this so-called consultant. She thinks about just resetting everyone by pure force, but right in the middle of her plan, someone gets her attention. It's Tento. He asks if the car outside is hers and tells her to move it out of the no parking zone. Crawl is totally speechless. Meanwhile, the little guy pops out of a hole looking like a total troublemaker. The dragon lady stays dead silent for a second before flashing a tiny smirk. Then she just cracks up. She says it's an old joke, but honestly, it still hits. Tento totally brags to Dominic that his humor actually worked. She agrees to go move her ride. Then she looks up at the sky and calls out to her older brother. She lets him know everything's chill. Right on cue, this massive dragon pops up behind the castle. Just one look from it would terrify anyone. With a super fierce roar, the beast announces that the Empress has given the final order. And just like that, the creepy silhouettes surrounding the castle start falling back to follow their boss. Dominic lets her know they're finally gone. But Rocco is so distracted she totally forgets to let go of his hand. Taking advantage of the chill vibe, Tento decides to lay out the rules and clear up any questions. He warns them that whoever fails loses their shot. Then, he finally drops the testing order. As you'd expect, the weakest guys go first. That makes Only look mad annoyed. The order goes straight from lowest to highest rank. That leaves Lord Bait dead last in line. The vibe gets super tense. The camera zooms in on the anxious face of one of the big shots. Bait, the number 1 guy on the ladder, gets super ticked off. He's just trying to figure out the king's endgame here. Meanwhile, Asila, the number 2, watches everything unfold. She's seriously wondering if she'll even get a turn. Then there's Distal in 3rd place. He's just watching the whole thing go down in dead silence. Catenaccio, sitting at number 5, already gets it. He knows he can't just sit around waiting for time to run out. Crowd Tempest, the rank 7, is low-key panicking. This order gives Only a massive advantage. Down at rank 9, Stacy is already spacing out. She's daydreaming about an army of spiders taking over the world. Dravi, the number 10 spot, vows to conquer the skies for the sake of his sisters. Only flashes this evil grin. His red eyes are literally glowing with pure hype. Sitting at number 11, he feels like he was literally born to pop off today. Frater, down at 23, is super worried. He thinks his brother might finish everything before he even gets a turn. And then there's Raber, the absolute underdog. He swears he's gonna get revenge on everyone who's ever slept on him. Terra, the heart of the earth, just starts laughing to himself like he just hit the jackpot. Rank 33 is hyped to be going first. He's already getting ready to dig some early graves for the heroes. So now the ultimate test is on. It's time to turn Troy and Riley into the absolute perfect rivals. The scene cuts outside. The sky is completely pitch black and full of stars by now. Only gets left behind and starts complaining. He's super annoyed that he's the only one who hasn't been sent home yet. Sitting with Dominic, Tento hits back. He says there's a very obvious reason why he's still hanging around. Dominic is mad confused. He gets where Only is coming from, but he has no clue why the guy is even here. He lets out a massive sigh. His brain is basically short-circuiting from too many plot twists in one day. But then a huge jump scare hits him. He actually ends up screaming King Krad's name out loud. Out of nowhere, somebody pulls up and just places a hand right on Only's head. And with zero warning, they slam the dude into the ground with a brutal hit. Dominic completely freezes up. He was definitely not expecting to see something that wild go down. Then Tento calls over the assistant. He wants a very detailed explanation for this mess. He questions whatever trick Dominic pulled when he first got to the castle. He tells him to straight up spill the beans. Still on the ground, Only just starts laughing. He literally can't believe the insane plot twist that just dropped. Getting up with a total smirk, he says he fixed problems by talking, not acting like wild animals. Crad drops this heavy aura and tells him to dial it back if he doesn't want his skull completely crushed. Frozen in pure panic, Only grits his teeth and stares at the ground. He literally can't even move a muscle. Sounding mad threatening, Tento demands to know why the guy just attacked one of his men. It finally clicks for Dominic. The master is absolutely furious about that aggressive welcome. Only tries to talk his way out of it. He claims it was just a joke and the attack got blocked anyway. I get it, Tento replies. He completely fakes buying that lame excuse. Then he gives him a heads up. He says he's gonna stomp on Only's head 8 times just as a joke too. Dominic checks his watch and totally freezes. He realizes it's already 9:28 at night. With his eyes glowing in the dark, the king looks like he just remembered something super urgent. He mutters about almost missing the sacred ritual. Then, he tells Only to get lost before he changes his mind. The demon just stays on the floor, dead silent. He's completely shook by what just went down. Dominic tries to talk to the master, but Only gets up looking like he's ready to murder someone. Flashing this sinister smile, he drops a bold claim. He says one day the king is going to be shining his shoes. Tento completely ignores the trash talk. He admits the guy is a hard worker and decides to drop some advice. He tells him to build up a persona that actually matches his strength. Right now, he's basically a nobody. Only is absolutely seething. He demands to know what the heck he meant by that. Running out of patience, the master just repeats his order. He tells him to get the heck out of there right now. Only vanishes in a blast of wind. The demon sovereign finally lets out a huge sigh of relief. Dominic asks if he should have held the guy down, but the master says the game plan was never to actually kill him. The king is suddenly super locked in. He's staring at something really important on his personal tablet. He thanks him for the time check and rushes off. He's gotta catch the primetime finale of his favorite K-drama. He starts complaining about the writer and swears absolute revenge if it's a sad ending, but his servant cuts him off. Dominic asks if he's actually put together a detailed schedule for everything past the initial tests. Putting on this innocent little face, the king promises he's mapped out every single detail of the operation. Feeling relieved, his right-hand man asks about the training phase, but then he notices something super off about the vibe. Crad just stares back at him deadpan. He's definitely got a tiny hint of guilt written all over his face. Dominic goes straight into panic mode. He laughs nervously as he realizes his master literally hasn't planned a single thing. He looks away with his totally defeated expression. It's like he's just given up on life and his boss entirely. Cutting to another spot, a commander reports a demon popping up out in a mountain range. He explains that Troy and Riley got picked for this run. Regular rookies definitely wouldn't be able to handle the job. Our boy accepts the mission looking super hyped. Meanwhile, Riley agrees but looks mad awkward about it. He calls his partner over to head out. The commander just stands there, watching the two of them leave. We get a quick montage of the servant and a commander thinking the exact same thing. Damn that demon king. Fast forward to the mission zone. Our MC points out that the place is way more isolated than it originally looked. Looking around, he wonders what the heck people were even doing out here in the middle of nowhere. Riley agrees, but she's totally distracted. She's crazy nervous about being stuck on a solo shift with her crush. Noticing her completely red face, the guy asks if she's running a fever or something. He reaches over to check her temperature, but the girl practically shorts out having him step that close. Her face turns so incredibly red, it looks like she's gonna straight up explode from embarrassment. In full panic mode, she yells at him to get his hand off. Poor Troy is left completely clueless about what just happened. She apologizes for freaking out and promises she isn't mad at him. That definitely helps chill the vibe a bit. Thinking it over, our MC decides he'll grab some sweets later to cheer the girl up. But the real reason she rejected his touch was actually way more technical than it looked. A hero has to keep their energy perfectly controlled. Her emotions were straight up throwing everything out of whack. Suddenly, Riley notices something. Her eyes go wide as she feels pure danger rushing their way. She was so distracted she completely missed the intense bloodlust in the air. She screams out Troy's name. Right then, this invisible force slams into the girl. It violently tosses her straight across the field. The boy yells in pure panic for her to get up. He can feel this super bizarre presence creeping up on them. Looking absolutely terrified, he knows for a fact that a demon is standing right in front of them. The girl completely freezes up. She can feel the shock locking down her entire body. Out of nowhere, this colossal stone wall erupts from the ground. Our boy is left completely confused. Gritting his teeth, he breaks into a cold sweat. He's just trying to process what kind of mess they're in. Right then, a massive earth snake bursts out of the dirt and grabs him tight. A mysterious voice echoes from the shadows. It orders the beast to absolutely crush him with zero mercy. Right after that, the creature straight up body slams the kid into the ground with brutal force. Riley screams his name in total despair. But then she feels another wave of bloodlust coming from right above her. She looks up and comes face to face with a massive stone fist flying right at her. The giant demon steps up. He drops a line about how blood ties are always the strongest bonds. Terra, sitting at rank 33, is already hyping himself up over the crazy reward the king promised. Far away from the fight, a robotic being calls the test totally boring, but he says he's gonna keep his word anyway. But a second later, he corrects himself. He admits he actually made a huge error in judgment. Flashing a sinister smile, he points out that this kind of test never wraps up that easily. The camera pans back to Riley. She's currently staring down a smaller stone creature right in front of her. Gripping her weapon, she demands they give Troy back. At the same time, the first rule gets revealed. Terra acts like he has absolutely no clue who the kid is, but he does guarantee one thing for sure. The rule strictly bans leaking any intel. He tells her that right here, they're nothing but prey. Back at base, the fake commander repeats his call. He refuses to send a single backup squad to help the heroes out. One masked guy questions the order. He argues that the enemy is way too strong and they're gonna suffer casualties. But the guy in the red hood completely cuts him off. He reminds him that the previous hero almost got wiped off the map entirely. He doubles down, saying everyone in the room knows exactly who actually took down the last batch of monsters. Wrapping up the chat, the hooded dude totally shuts the rest of them up with that logic. The fake commander decides to take the risk. He tells everyone to just shut up and follow orders. Dominic is the ultimate master of disguise. He knows this cover story will keep absolutely everyone away from the site. Watching the whole thing with caramel popcorn, Tento totally praises his right-hand man's efficiency. Checking out the fight, Dominic points out that they talk way too much for people in a life-or-death battle. He even jokes about needing subtitles for this. He finally gets why the master asked for total media coverage. Back on the battlefield, a massive dust explosion totally covers the area. Riley pulls off a sick spin. She deflects the incoming hit with her massive blade. With this totally locked-in look, she admits her opponent actually has some decent skills. But Terra just stomps hard on the ground. The entire area starts violently shaking from the impact. Looking half buried in the dirt, the demon starts mocking her. He asks how long she's really gonna last out here. Right then, he fires off a barrage of razor-sharp rock spikes straight at the heroine. Moving like an absolute pro, the girl dodges every single attack without taking a scratch. She takes a deep breath. She's putting all her focus into setting up her next move. Then she unleashes her ultimate technique. It's called the Ink Realm. She fires off 3 insanely powerful blasts of dark energy right at the enemy. The shadow projectiles hit the target dead on. It's an absolutely massive direct impact. Tento breaks down the scatter strike. He notices she's using the technique with absolute perfection. He realizes her pinpoint accuracy lets her handle multiple targets at the exact same time. Pushing up his glasses, the king wonders if she's already stepping into the realm of pure raw talent. With pure fury in her eyes, Riley demands they give her Troy back right now. Terra just taunts her. He says if his presence is completely gone, the kid is probably dead. Hearing that, the girl goes into full-blown shock. She literally can't even find the words to speak. Laughing it off, the demon reaches out his hand. He says she'll have to see the body to know for sure. Then he blitzes forward at some insane speed. He's totally channeling massive energy right into his hand. He threatens to send her straight to the same grave as her partner using his stone spikes. But Riley just stands there completely frozen. Meanwhile, this glowing circular aura starts forming around her. In total silence, she finally accepts the dark truth. She can't feel her friend's energy anymore. With this weird, intense look in her eyes, she finally starts to understand how the real world works. She repeats the question. She already knows exactly how the game is played around here. Back at the castle, Dominic is just chilling and munching on his popcorn while watching the whole thing go down. Tento is totally impressed. He says the girl's intuition is absolutely surreal and decides to test his assistant. Dominic explains that out in an open rocky area like that, the Earth Demon Terra's combat power gets buffed to the absolute max. But then he adds that the guy's weakness is also super obvious. Tento backs him up. The crystal core gives off so much aura that Riley could sense it from a mile away. The narration drops in to explain that the only real challenge here was actually getting close to that crystal. But after just a few hits, our girl already completely figured out the secret behind the enemy's strength. Basically, the second that stone giant slips up, it's game over for him. Using her special move, Riley throws up this dark barrier called the Ink Realm. Then she immediately combos it into her fourth technique, the White Wall. The barrier completely explodes with purple energy. The impact sends Terra flying right across the field. The robotic demon admits her defense was pretty solid, but he claims there's absolutely no way she can escape him. Suddenly, you notices something super weird on the ground. He wonders what the heck is even going on down there. Back in the command room, Tento smiles, seeing these old-school tricks actually working. Meanwhile, Dominic totally freezes up. Out on the battlefield, there are 3 purple ink spheres just sitting dead on the ground. It's the Scatter Strike, but she's using it in a completely new and crazy creative way. Terra gets mad pissed. He asks if she seriously thinks this little magic act is gonna save her life. The robotic dude keeps insisting she has 0 ways out. He says she's totally doomed no matter what. The narration drops a huge detail. The ground wasn't just buffing Terra, it was literally connected to his core. The Earth acted like a massive radar. If anything so much as breathed on it, he'd know their exact location. Right then, one of the ink spheres starts glowing with this intense purple aura. The rock demon figures she's trying to hide. He straight up tells her he isn't falling for her little games. He spawns this massive stone blade. He plans to crush all 3 spheres in one single hit. Terra calls checkmate. He's totally convinced the fight is ending right here and now. But while he's busy celebrating, Riley spawns right behind him. She just completely impales the guy. She runs her blade straight through the monster's chest. He's so stunned he asks if she's serving some master. The demon is absolutely clueless. He can't figure out if he just hit an illusion or her actual body. While he's completely losing his mind over it, our girl just glares at him with pure killer intent. Turns out Riley completely ignored his trash talk about Troy dying. She put all her focus into his ground radar. She realized his attacks were crazy accurate even when he wasn't looking. He was tracking her life energy through the vibrations. That's when everything finally clicked. She completely figured out how his tracking system worked. Her red was dead on. The ground wasn't detecting her physical body at all. It was tracking her raw energy, so she totally masked her own presence. Then she dumped all her energy into her sword to use it as bait. Watching the whole thing, Dominic totally gets the play, but he still can't figure out how she closed the gap so fast. Tento breaks it down. Since she couldn't touch the ground, she literally surfed on her own ink blades. We get a sick shot of Riley hitching a ride on an energy blast. She literally flew right up to her opponent. The rock demon breaks into a cold sweat. He's grinding his teeth from pure pain and rage. He tries to fight back. He figures a sword fighter without her blade is basically totally useless. But then the girl's body completely melts into ink. It turns out she was nothing but a clone the whole time. The robotic dude is left in absolute shock. He cannot believe this massive big brain play from the girl. Someone points out that this is an ace up her sleeve. Not even her master Blee knew she could do this. Tento gets insanely hyped. He's freaking out, saying that she can actually recall her sword from a distance. Terra is still completely locked down by the ink clone. He's screaming in pure agony and literally can't escape. The real sword comes flying right back. It completely decapitates the monster with one clean slice. His stone body shatters into a million pieces. That leaves his yellow crystal core completely exposed. Stepping out of the shadows, Riley confirms her gut feeling was right. Going straight for the weak point totally worked. Standing over the giant's remains, our heroine points her blade straight at his crystal heart. With absolute focus, she gets ready to land the finishing blow and finally wrap this up. But right as she's about to strike, she notices something. She completely freezes up in total shock. Out of nowhere, this massive invisible force blasts her backward with a brutal hit. While she's down on the ground glaring at him, the demon actually admits her strategy was pretty solid. But then Terra fully regenerates and starts mocking her. He says she really should have taken a closer look at his core. Miles away, our boy is sprinting like crazy. He's totally beating himself up for being way too slow.